Yesterday we started working on Ezra chapter 10, the last chapter of the book of Ezra, and this is a very challenging public situation that we're running into here as Ezra and the people who realize they've made a big mistake try to unmake a very difficult to unmake mistake. So we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday and take it right on to the end of the book of Ezra today. And so the crowd goes on to work through and offer a proposal for how to get through the logistics of this and sort it out, and the timetable involved that they acknowledge it's going to take to fix it, to me, again, indicates that they had to make whole or make right the people they had wronged, the foreign wives and children who are being sent away. And in verse 16 it says, "So the exiles did as was proposed. Ezra the priest selected men who were family heads, one from each family division, and all of them designated by name. On the first day of the 10th month, they sat down to investigate the cases, and by the first day of the first month, they finished dealing with all the men who had married foreign women." And then the rest of the book is a list of everyone who married foreign women. So Ezra's giving you the wall of shame there, and then the final verse of the book of Ezra, which again is very abrupt after such mayhem, is just this: "All these had married foreign women, and some of them had children by these wives." You see why this really is begging for a next thing and really doesn't feel like the natural end to a book? The task isn't completed. You're supposed to rebuild the temple. That happens in the first chunk of Ezra, before Ezra was alive, writing about things that date back to the time of the reigns of Cyrus and Darius under the leadership of Zerubbabel. Then you're supposed to rebuild the people. That's contemporary with the lifespan of Ezra. That's the task that begins in the second half of the book of Ezra, during the lifetime of Ezra, during the reign of Artaxerxes in the mid-400s BC. But the task of rebuilding the people, the task of putting back together the mess, is not done by the time we get to the end of Ezra. All we've done so far is stop the bleeding, right? I mean, there hasn't been this renewal or a revival. We're just to the confession part. We're just to the part where you own it and stop doing the thing that you've done wrong. I know we've talked about this before. I don't know, maybe I even acknowledged it a couple of days ago. We got this thing in my family, and I think it's from the Bible, but I also think it's just common sense. What do you do when you screwed up? What do you do when you made a mistake? Well, the first thing you do, my kids would tell you this: stop it. Just knock it off. Stop it. As soon as you know it's damaging, it's wrong, you stop. And if you need help to stop, then you get help to stop. The second thing that you do, or the third, I mean, this can kind of go either way depending on the nature of the circumstances, but generally the second thing you do is square accounts. If you've been doing damage and the damage has left any kind of wreckage, you got to try to undo the wreckage. You might owe people things. It might be words. It might be money. It might be time. I don't know. But you square accounts with apologies and making whole whoever you might have wronged. The third thing that you do, and sometimes this might need to be the second, again, depending on circumstances, is you think long and hard about what went wrong. And then that sets you up for the fourth thing that you do, which is make a new plan, paint a new picture for the future. Put things in place so that now it'll be different and better and redemptive moving forward. And then the final thing that you do, and my kids have got this one on lockdown because it is so important, that once you did the stuff that you need to do in a practical sense to square things up and get stuff right and come back from a calamity, a gigantic mistake, the final thing is you move on in grace and peace. You made things right with other people. Things are made right with God. You wrung every last drop of analysis and consideration out of it and implemented the changes that need to happen. There's nothing left to be gained from lingering in the situation. It's over. That principle from the Bible of it's forgiven. It's as far as the east is from the west. You lean into that. You acknowledge people make mistakes and there's no such thing as time travel and you can't go back and undo it or change it, and you move forward. This is one of the hugest lessons in life, is just getting this, because everybody screws things up. Everybody makes messes. Everybody's got shameful, embarrassing things that you lay in bed sometimes at night and cringe over that you've been a part of. Sometimes it's individual stuff. Sometimes it's corporate stuff. And that is really what we see in the second half of Ezra, is a corporate calamity that is begging for resolution. It's begging for those steps. But the reason Ezra doesn't feel complete in any way is because we're not through the steps. all we've done is stop the bleeding. All we've done is figure out, whoa, I'm making a mistake. We're collectively making a huge mistake, and we have to stop making the mistake, even if it's incredibly painful to do so. Maybe you could say that we're getting into step 2, if indeed reading between the lines that the reason it took so long to administrate all of this out was because of the people who'd made promises they couldn't keep, the people who'd committed to things that weren't theirs to commit to. Probably they had to square up accounts here or somehow make whole the families of the women that they took on as wives or whatever. If we assume that, then maybe we're just getting into step 2 here, the square accounts part. But we got a long ways to go before the people are restored. And remember, that is Ezra's exact commissioning from Artaxerxes and God. Go and rebuild this people. Well, that task is not done yet. And there are threats to these people, we'll see moving forward into the book we're really here to work on, which is Nehemiah. There are threats to the people from inside of their own character and their own culture because they've brought things in that are terribly destructive and that don't belong in terms of the practices of the neighboring tribes. But also there's a physical threat, and that is now the neighboring tribes are kind of mad because you just sent away all of their wives. And they're probably not going to like that, even if you give them goats and money and little strips of leather that you banged on with a rock or I don't know what you give people back then. They're not going to be happy about what just happened. Israel just made a giant public declaration. We are not going to mingle with any of y'all. But just shortly before that, they'd all casually acted like, yeah, whatever, we're just another tribe. Come on. Also, we got like $250 million or $250 billion or something. Just come on in and we'll share the wealth. Well, now that isn't going to be the case. The neighbors are going to be hot about that. And so this second threat that we have at the end of Ezra and going into the beginning of Nehemiah is there's no walls around the city. And now you just made everybody super, super, super mad in a way that you wouldn't have probably if you just rolled in and built your things and stayed to yourselves, but you didn't do that. And so now there's a compounding problem. And as we roll into Nehemiah, both of those problems need to be addressed. Hey, look at that. We got a bonus book of the Bible that we didn't even see coming and that you're probably not even going to be able to get a sticker for. I don't know what to do about that. What do we do about the sticker? Because if you didn't know, you get a sticker at the end of these things. Well, everybody supports the program, gets a sticker for it's awesome. It's all like designed and it's pretty and stuff. And it's a commemoration. It's a mile marker to say we did this book of the Bible. But what do you think? Does that count as Ezra? Because we sort of half did it before Esther in those first 42 episodes. And then we kind of half did Ezra before Nehemiah. I don't know. Maybe I should make a sticker. I'd like to hear from you. You tell me if you think that we have dived deep enough into the book of Ezra that this merits a sticker, and I will abide by whatever the majority consensus is that I hear back from all of you in whatever way you choose to communicate with me. Whatever the case, Nehemiah 1:1 next time around. I'm pretty excited about that. All right, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.